wiretaps, Guantanamo keeping it open, and the drone strikes, which he's increased in Pakistan. I just wish he didn't say George Bush violated the Constitution when he did it, because now Barack Obama's doing the same. But the worst thing he's done on the other side on foreign policy is Iran. He really missed a chance when he stayed silent when the Iranian people took to the streets to protest a false, stolen election, to send a signal America stands with the people of Iran and see if the Iranians would take the control of their own future. He sat silent. He sat timid. That was a huge missed opportunity. And now Iran is stronger, and it looks like they're going to go nuclear.
Iran is not strong. Iran, in fact, go ahead.
No, Donna, weren't there? I mean, there were many people in Iran at the time in the Green Movement who did not want the U.S. to visibly be siding with them because they didn't want it to play into Iranian government hands, if I'm not mistaken.
And it would have consolidated the people of Iran behind the Iranian government at a time we were trying to help strengthen those who were on the street. I think the president made the right decision with regard to Iran, and I think he made the right decision with regard to Israel and making sure that they have what they need to protect themselves against any future attack from Iran. And that's what the White House is working closely with Israel at this time and helping them prepare. And there are no good options in Syria, and yet tonight what we heard was just a lot of saber rattling. And on many of these foreign policy issues, I have to tell you, I agree with Ron Paul.
I think it's important to remember, Anderson, it's such an uncertain time in the Republican race. These candidates are competing for conservative votes, number one. Number two, David's point about Osama bin Laden is a fair one. This is an election that is going to be, by and large, barring some big change, some big global event or global crisis, an election about the economy, election about the role of government, election about taxes and spending, perhaps the reach of government when it comes to health care. However, I do think these Republican candidates, and if you talk to anybody in the Obama White House, they get this too. The giant question mark in our foreign policy right now, front and center, is the question of Iran. The IAEA inspectors told to leave without being able to see the nuclear facilities. The price of gas rising every day here in the United States, in part because of this confrontation and the uncertainty. So that is a giant question mark as we head deeper and deeper into the election season. We can't, as we speak tonight, have any idea whether it will be a big issue in November, and if it is, how it will play.
So the question, of course, is tonight, who scored highest among conservatives? I'll ask that to our panel when we come back. We've got a lot more to talk about. Also, we look back at the life and legacy of Marie Colvin, killed in Syria yesterday, just a few hours after talking with us on this program last night. Hey, we're back with special coverage of tonight's Republican debate in Mesa, Arizona. The candidates traded punches on a range of issues, threw some of the hardest punches on earmarks. Take a look.
Congress has a role of allocating resources when they think the administration has it wrong. I defended that at the time. I'm proud I defended it at the time because I think they did make mistakes. I do believe there was abuse, and I said we should stop it. And as president, I would oppose earmarks.
Governor?
I didn't follow all of that, but I can tell you this. I would put a ban on earmarks. I think it opens the door to excessive spending. Congress wants to vote in favor of a bill, that they should take that bill, bring it forward with committees, have people say vote it up or down on the floor of the House and the Senate, have the president say yes or no and move forward. You mentioned coming to the Olympics, coming to the United States Congress, asking for support. No question about it. That's the nature of what it is when you lead an organization or a state. You come to Congress and you say, these are the things we need. I was fighting for those things. Our games are successful. But while I was fighting to save the Olympics, you were fighting to save the bridge to nowhere.
Quickly.
It's really interesting, Governor, because the process you just described of an open process where members of Congress put forth their suggestions on how to spend money, have them voted on individually, is exactly how the process worked. So what you're just suggested as to how earmarks should work in the future is exactly how they worked in the past.
I'm sorry, the 6,000 earmarks that were put in place under the Speaker's term, for instance, were oftentimes tagged onto other bills.
You're entitled to your opinions, Mitch. You're not entitled to to
I've heard that line before. I've heard
misrepresent the facts, and you're misrepresenting the facts. You don't know what you're talking about. What happened in the earmark process? What happens in the earmark process? It was that members of Congress would ask, formally, publicly request these things, put them on paper, and have them allocated, and have them voted on in committee, have them voted on the floor of the Senate. Congressman Paul,
attached to a bill,
as part of the bill,
and the president can't veto it.
He can veto the bill.
The whole bill, but he can't veto the earmark.
Well, we tried to do that, by the way. I supported the line item veto.
That's what I support.
Hold on.
And we're back with our panel again. Who do you think appealed to conservatives the most tonight?
Newt Gingrich. You know, I think Newt had one of those nights, and this is why debates don't always drive voter behavior, although in this cycle they increasingly have, but I don't think this one will for Newt. But Newt had that commonsensical appeal, and Newt had the more thoughtful appeal, and he approached a lot of these issues from a good conservative point of view, especially when we talked about energy production in this country and made some points. Rick Santorum spoke, anytime you talk about a committee and the floor, you're losing. You're talking Washington inside process, and that's what hurt Rick Santorum tonight.
Well, Anderson, this earmark debate has become definitional in the Romney-Santorum tug of war. Now, as I said in the question, it's a tiny piece of the federal budget, but this is a litmus test to the Tea Party. They look at what happened in Congress, and they believe, whether it's right or wrong, that this is the gateway to corruption in Congress, and so it has become a big issue in the race, and Governor Romney has tried to push it, despite the fact that if you took away all the earmarks for the last 10 years, you wouldn't do a huge role in cutting the debt of the country, but it has become politics is about math. Senator Santorum has been growing in part because he's picking up Tea Party support. He's new in terms of as the candidate at the center of the stage. And this is part of Governor Romney's effort to tell the Tea Party voters around the country, especially in Michigan right now, which happens to vote on Tuesday. Take another look at this guy. He's not who you think.
I would to a degree disagree with that. And from the Tea Party's perspective, Anderson, Congressman Jeff Flake of Arizona, Senator Tom Coburn from Oklahoma, they call earmarks the gateway drug to the federal government. If you look at every major controversial piece of legislation that's been passed in the past few years, it has required the president or the Congress, the appropriators, to add earmarks to get particular votes. So if you got rid of earmarks, and we've seen it's become inordinately more difficult to pass certain pieces of legislation in Congress. That's why they were opposed to it. And I got to tell you, I talked to a good conservative friend of mine today who doesn't like Mitt Romney, he doesn't like Gingrich. It's not me, by the way, and he doesn't really care for Santorum. And he says Santorum's the guy where his heart is, but every time he hears Santorum hide behind Jim DeMint on earmarks, which is what I've been saying as well, it makes him diminish Santorum a little bit.
Well, what was kind of interesting tonight was Santorum made the point, what's the difference between asking for earmarks and approving earmarks? Because you, Mitt Romney, asked for earmarks for the Salt Lake City Olympics, which of course gave Ron Paul an opening to say, this is what's wrong with Washington. There is no difference. And Gingrich had the great line, right?
But Anderson, I want to come back to a more general point, and that is how these debates fit into the narrative of the whole year. And I have to say, when you got candidates in their final debate spending so much time on earmarks, as opposed to talking about Barack Obama's record and putting him on trial, in effect, through these debates, I think that that's a net negative for Republicans.
They really got into the weeds tonight in a way.
But isn't that because, Eric, isn't that because the reason we have the volatility, the reason we've had so many leaders in the race, I won't use the term front runner anymore, I don't think we have one at the moment, is because there is this trust issue. It boils down to conservatives around the country saying, who can we trust?
I absolutely.
And the earmark debate is part of that trust. Who at their core is a fiscal conservative?
But here's the thing. I think the harder the time they have getting the conservatives to trust them, they have to play more and more to the conservative base, and that's fine for getting the nomination. But in terms of winning the election, you've got to have far more than the conservative base. And they have driven so far over to the right in order to convince the conservative. I think they're paying a price in terms of their positioning for the general election.
Mitt Romney tonight, I believe, John, said that Arizona immigration law, SB 1070, is a model for the country. That's going to come back to hurt him in the fall when he tries to go out and tell the rest of the country why the Arizona law is good for the country. Again, he's pandering to the choir, but he's forgotten that he had to talk to the congregation in the fall.
That's why I agree with Ari that I really think that Newt Gingrich probably did himself the most help tonight because Romney and Santorum did battle each other into the weeds trying to prove who could out-conservative each other, and Gingrich really kept trying to bring the fight back to Barack Obama. But I got to really tell you, I was very disappointed tonight. No offense to John, but I was really expecting the Final Four to fly to the moon to battle Satan over contraceptives. It didn't actually happen.
But, you know, I think they actually all did what they came to do. I mean, Mitt Romney had to make Rick Santorum look like an insider and a big spender, at the same time looking presidential. Ron Paul had to be candid and be anti-Washington, and Newt Gingrich had to look like the visionary who was above it all. And I think they each played to type to a...
I agree with those three except for Rick Santorum, because I think Rick Santorum did miss that chance tonight. He was on the ascendancy. I mean, the last couple of weeks.
I agree.
It's been all about Rick Santorum, and tonight he didn't continue that momentum. If anything, he gave Romney a chance back into Michigan, where it has been close.
And at these moments where candidates have risen up, it's where you grab that opportunity. And everyone's had a bad debate in this cycle. The question is for Senator Torm, if you're right, and he had a bad debate tonight, will he get another chance? There's none on the books.
Right. And already the numbers in Michigan, we're getting a little bit closer for Mitt Romney. He was coming up again in the polls after having falling to Rick Santorum. We'll see if tonight moves the needle in any direction in Michigan and elsewhere. We're going to have more from our coverage. We'll be right back. Also, more on the death of Marie Colvin from in Syria yesterday. We're going to get final thoughts from our panel in just a moment. First, Ron Paul taking a direct shot tonight at Rick Santorum.
We have a new television ad that labels him a fake. Why?
Because he's a fake.
Unreal, Ron. Unreal.
Congratulations.
Unreal. Thank you.
No, I find it really fascinating that when people are running for office, they're really fiscally conservative. When they're in office, they do something different. And then when they explain themselves, they say, oh, I want to repeal that.
And let's go back to some final thoughts with our panel. I'm just now hearing Mitt Romney's top aide tonight is now predicting a win in Michigan. They say they're going to spend the next 2 days in Michigan. They're going to be there every single day based on that they are all in. Do you think this tonight is going to make a difference for Mitt Romney in Michigan?
Yeah, I think there's no question it will. I think that's the history of the debates this cycle. They've had an inordinate role in the next state that votes. And if Mitt Romney does win Arizona and Michigan, it sort of resets the table and gives him a chance to have the upper hand again on somewhat Super Tuesday. If Santorum takes Michigan, he's got the momentum, and he'll take it into Super Tuesday.
Well, manage bankruptcy. Tell that to those workers, those union workers who are now with a job, 1 million of them, because of the bailout that saved Chrysler's and General Motors.
I think the devil's in the details, more pun intended. If Mitt Romney wins Michigan, but the vote comes in less than it did last time again, if he gets less votes this time than he did last time again, you're still going to have a lot of Republicans say the votes aren't sold.
If Rick Santorum had won tonight, this would be a very different race. He would have probably won Michigan and gone on to do very well on Super Tuesday. I think all that's changed now. Mitt Romney's in a much stronger position heading into the next contest.
And let me throw this out there. If Mitt Romney were to win Michigan and Arizona, maybe that sets the table, to use Ari's phrase, for a comeback for Newt Gingrich. You never know.
Wouldn't surprise me.
I would add this in closing, Anderson. Look backwards as we look forward. This has been a volatile, unpredictable race. If Mitt Romney can win Michigan and Arizona, people will say, aha, he's the front runner again. I would say, but he's been the front runner before. Yeah. We still got a lot of twists and turns here. Let's let the people vote.
John King, you did a great job tonight. All our panelists, thank you. Coming up next, our tribute to journalist Marie Colvin, killed in Syria last night. She put her life on the line repeatedly to tell the story of suffering of other people. She talked to us hours before she was killed. You'll hear some of her last interviews ahead. Okay, that's it for us. CNN's replay of the Arizona Republican debate starts now.
The presidential race has been won by Governor Ronald Reagan of California.
George Herbert Walker Bush, 41st President of the United States. Governor Clinton is now President. Bill Clinton too close to call.
Here it is, George W. Bush re-elected. Barack Obama, President-elect of the United States.
This is CNN.